Greetings, System Failure listeners. Nate here with your weekly essay read, this one entitled New World Order, and subtitled How Banks Replaced Popes Atop Europe's Political Hierarchy. This essay provides a brief history of the origins of the international banking system, which today holds considerable political power over our nominal heads of state. The precursors to the modern banking system began operating soon after the power of the Roman Catholic Church was severely curtailed by the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. The Church had been the preeminent transnational power during the Middle Ages, but after the sun set on its power, bankers began consolidating influence and eventually became the new transnational power in our modern era. The power of the popes. The Middle Ages lasted 1,000 years. Traditional dates range from the deposition of the last emperor in Rome in 476 AD to the conquest of Constantinople by the Turkish Sultan in 1453. The Roman Catholic Church was the most powerful institution in Europe during that time, with popes generally wielding significant power over secular heads of state. That arrangement traditionally began on Christmas Day in the year 800 AD, when Pope Leo III presented Charlemagne with the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Experts now question the historicity of that story, which comes to us from Charlemagne's contemporary biographer. What is not in doubt is that the popes rose to a position of power over the crowned heads of Christendom in the centuries after the fall of Rome. The feudal economic system began to collapse after the Black Death ravaged Europe in the mid-1300s. By the early 1500s, the Protestant Reformation began to challenge the Church's political authority. By the early 1600s, the bitter religious conflict had escalated into the horrific 30 Years' War. The Peace of Westphalia finally brought that war to a close in 1648. It formally established international borders and laid the groundwork for the modern nation-state, and severely curtailed the power of the Roman Catholic Church. The idea was that the Pope would no longer be allowed to influence the choice of religion in foreign lands. States that wished to be Protestant would be allowed to do so under the new international rules. It was the birth of our modern political paradigm. The power of central banks. Nature, as the saying goes, abhors a vacuum. Just 46 years after the Peace of Westphalia in 1694, the Bank of England, wittingly or unwittingly, began the long process of filling the power vacuum left at the apex of European geopolitics. In that year, bankers from London and Edinburgh pooled their resources and loaned considerable funds to King William III, who desperately needed financing for his war against France. The bankers proceeded to sell off the rights to collect the money that the king now owed. The resulting promissory notes soon began circulating as one of Europe's first national paper currencies. After these paper notes were widely accepted as a form of payment, bankers had the power to print money. They only needed to hold enough actual gold or silver in their vaults to satisfy customers seeking to redeem paper for coins. Only a fraction of the value of the paper currency they issued was backed up by precious metals. They learned this trick from England's contemporary goldsmiths. But the Bank of England institutionalized the practice of fractional reserve lending on a national scale. Over the ensuing centuries, central banks, similar to the Bank of England, have been established in nearly every country in the world. Their financial monopoly over the issuance of currency bears a striking resemblance to the spiritual monopoly that the Vatican parlayed into immense wealth during the Middle Ages. By 1930, coordination between these central banks was formalized in Switzerland with the establishment of the Bank for International Settlements, which serves as a central bank for central bankers. Like the popes during the Middle Ages, today's international banking system is a transnational authority that wields considerable power over the nominal heads of state. In our own time, conservative politician Barry Goldwater once remarked, quote, "Most Americans have no real understanding of the operation of the international moneylenders. It operates outside the control of Congress and manipulates the credit of the United States." Unquote. New Order of the Ages. In 1618, the 30 Years' War was ignited by the infamous Defenestration of Prague, an incident where enraged Protestants hurled Catholic administrators from a high window in Prague Castle. A photograph of the site where this occurred, taken by the author, serves as the title card for this essay. An amusing coincidence of symbology is also to be found at this site. Just outside, visible in the title card, stands a large stone pyramid with a copper capstone. Though it was placed there in the 20th century, this piece of Egyptian symbology is eerily reminiscent of the unfinished pyramid and the Eye of Providence found on the Great Seal of the United States and on the back of every U.S. $1 bill. All U.S. paper money is labeled Federal Reserve Note because the Fed, not the U.S. Treasury, issues the currency and backs its value. The central banking system, pioneered by London and Edinburgh bankers in 1694, today wields tremendous power. That is particularly true in the case of the U.S. dollar, which remains the world's reserve currency. The twin Latin mottos, Annuit Coeptis and Novus Ordo Seclorum, appear above and below the pyramid on the U.S. $1 bill. These translate to God favors us and a new order of the ages. The latter phrase was lifted straight from the Roman poet Virgil. More fitting mottos could scarcely be imagined for the long historical process that saw the fall of the spiritual monopoly of the popes and the rise of the currency-issuing monopoly of the banks. The fact that banking houses now occupy a similar station of political and economic dominance could not be better symbolized at the site of a significant turning point in that process. Conclusion. Just as the Roman Catholic Church was once the most powerful institution during the Middle Ages, banks are today the most powerful institutions in our modern world. The shift from the medieval to the contemporary age involved the fall of one transnational authority and the rise of another. Where the church used to monetize a spiritual monopoly to achieve great wealth, the central banks that arose in the aftermath of the 30 Years' War are still monetizing a monopoly on currency issuance. Well, alrighty, folks, that is it for this week's audio essay. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, head on over to systemfailure.org. There, you can enter in your email address and receive the written versions of these weekly essays every week in your email inbox. Of course, the written version of these essays, you can see the title card mentioned in it, and you can also view the further material section, which this week includes a quote from the late, great David Graeber. Alrighty, folks, that concludes that concludes this System Failure Short. I will be back on Monday with Brian for another regularly scheduled edition of the System Failure Podcast. Can't wait to see you all then. Hope you're having a great week.